Jane. That's very kind introduction. And thanks everyone for coming to hear what I have to say. I'm going to share my screen. So just do that. Okay, does that look good, Jenny?
Yep, that's good.
Okay, great. So that is me during lockdown. You can tell it's quite a chilly day because I've got my woolly hat on and I'm doing my daily walk along the backs. I have to say the last year, or even longer now, isn't it, 15, 16 months, it's been an absolutely momentous year. In my career, I've been lucky enough to witness many moments in history, elections of presidents, military coups, general elections, but I never even thought I would witness a pandemic. And of course, nothing has ever prepared me, both professionally and personally, or any of us, I suspect, would say the same thing. Nothing has prepared us for what we've all gone through in our different ways in the last year to 18 months. Let me take you back, December 2019, and Boris wins a landslide. And I show you this picture because this is one of the many, many things that my team does, or did, now that it's not my team anymore. So this is the front of Broadcasting House, and when we have a general election, we project the scores in a live, updating way onto the front of television of a new Broadcasting House in Oxford Circus. And you normally get quite a big crowd coming along and watching and making a bit of a night of it. And as you can see, we stay up all night and well into the following day. It's just nearly 4:30 in the morning at that point. And, you know, this was sort of business as usual for us. It's a very big thing to do a general election. It takes an awful lot of people to do it across TV, radio, online, both for people who live abroad in World Service land and people who live in the UK, getting the nuances right for all the different parts of the UK. And it's a very kind of fast changing live event that lasts forever and ever. It goes on for a very long time. These days, there was a time when it all happened quite quickly and everybody counted on a Thursday night into Friday morning, but now many people don't even start to count until the following morning, and the results tend to come over some period of days, even if you get the main result still on that Thursday night, Friday morning. Anyway, you know, it was just before Christmas, it was the end of a long year, we felt quite tired, but it was all normal. You know, it was all very, very normal. And one of the things that Bridget and I have been doing for the last couple of years, as part of Bridget being master at Peterhouse, is to go to Hong Kong for 4 or 5 days every kind of New Year, around the New Year period, because Bridget is on the Jardine Scholarship Board, and that's a board that hands out scholarships to about 12 undergraduates and about 12 graduates every year, coming from all over the Asia Pacific area. And they go to 4 Oxford and 4 Cambridge colleges, and so the masters of those colleges form this committee board to choose the final 12 twice a year. And at Christmas, New Year, that's in Hong Kong. So we went off there and we had a lovely, normal time. And then what we decided to do was just take a little holiday afterwards, because we were all pretty tired, and we decided to go to Thailand and to a kind of beach resort for a week, just to kind of chill out and relax. And I remember very clearly, as we were heading home, coming back through Kuala Lumpur airport, a tannoy happening and saying, if the flight from Wuhan has just arrived, if you were on that flight and you're feeling unwell, please report to the authorities. I thought, oh, you know, that's a bit odd. What's going on there? Didn't think very much about it. But now, of course, with hindsight, that was the start of what we all know unfolded. And I suppose when I first heard about a new virus coming from China, I wasn't that worried anyway, because we'd had three viruses, if you count bird flu, in the last 10 or 15 years coming from China. I'm thinking particularly of SARS, an earlier SARS virus, and it hadn't really affected us. It hadn't become any kind of pandemic, really. It had been fairly well contained, so I wasn't that bothered. And then not long after, you may remember, on the last day of January, and the story was written the day after, there was the first case of a COVID case in the UK, and it was actually at the University of York. It was a Chinese student. And I suppose even then, we were sort of thinking, well, it's a Chinese student, there's an obvious link, and they come from an infected area, and, we can isolate it and it will probably be okay. But then kind of it wasn't. And I'm just going to play you a minute or two of one of the early news reports, which really started the alarm bells ringing in a major way for us at the BBC, and I think around the world.
Good evening. The latest UK case of coronavirus is the first to be contracted within the country rather than abroad. The man walked into a GP surgery in Surrey feeling unwell. It came as another patient who'd been quarantined on a cruise ship in Japan became the first Briton to die from the illness. The respiratory disease, which causes pneumonia-like symptoms, has infected almost 84,000 people in more than 50 countries. And although the vast majority of cases remain in China, the virus is now spreading faster outside that country. The World Health Organization says most, if not all, countries should expect outbreaks. Here in the UK, 20 people now have coronavirus, with Wales reporting its first patient. In a moment, we'll look at the effect of coronavirus on the global economy, and we'll answer some of the most pressing questions on how to manage the threat that the virus poses. But first, our health editor Hugh Pym has this report, which does contain flashing images.
Tonight, this GP surgery in Surrey was being deep cleaned after being closed to patients. A man who'd been in to see a doctor tested positive for the coronavirus. It's potentially highly significant, as he hadn't been abroad. Health officials are trying to find out if he was in contact with anyone recently back from one of the worst affected countries. And in Japan, the first British fatality from the coronavirus. A man who'd been a tourist on the Diamond Princess cruise ship. After contracting the virus, he was said to have been very poorly. 5 Japanese people who were on the ship have also died, and more than 700 cases were diagnosed, with the ship quarantined earlier this month. 2 more people are being treated at the Specialist Infectious Diseases Unit at London's Royal Free Hospital after testing positive. A man from Swansea has contracted the virus after returning from northern Italy, the first case in Wales. There's been a surge in the number of calls to the NHS 111 helpline. Some callers have told the BBC of delays. An NHS source said people might have to wait longer, though the system was working. The government has to reassure.
So I can tell you the alarm bells are well and truly ringing now behind the scenes at the BBC. The numbers are still very, very low, 20 cases in the UK, but they're all over the UK. And we know now that this virus is now seeded and it's spreading. And we probably will learn a little bit more about what's going behind the scenes in government after the Select Committee and then inquiries report. But it's really, really clear that this is something very serious, and it's not just in China, it's everywhere in the world, and it's in the UK. And so the first kind of major thing that we were all beginning to think about, apart from the coverage of the story, was what are we going to do about our staff? What are we going to do about how we work? How do we look after our staff? What do we need to do? And this is what we did. We sent everyone home. This is the office I used to work in, the Visual and Data Journalism office. In that particular office, there would normally be 30 to 40 people. Throughout the building, there'd be another 30 to 40 people. And then there are many others around the country and the world. But this became a ghost town. And for the first kind of week, we'd sent everyone home. the lockdown was announced. We actually sent people home the week before the lockdown was announced, but we could see it was coming. And for the first kind of week, I basically went into the office and started to dispatch kit to people at home. We'd always worked in a very flexible way in my team. I'd always encouraged people to work from home at least one day a week. So everybody had laptops that they could take, but because of the kind of journalism they do, which is very intricate data work with spreadsheets and lines of code, or very intricate design work, they really need 2 screens. So I spent a lot of time just sort of taking those screens that you can see off their holders and dispatching them in sort of cars to do an arc and deliver 4 or 5 screens to my team in each trip. And some of the team came in to sort of, because I was a bit worried about just putting, we have, you know, a trusted provider of taxis at the BBC with a contract, but I was a bit worried about them going awry. So each day one person would come in and just help me, you know, box them all up and address them correctly, and then get in the taxi with the driver and make sure all the deliveries were made, and the last stop on the tour would be their own house. And so one day, one of our data scientists, Mariam, came in. Mariam is spelt Mary A.M. She's a really brainy and excellent data scientist. And we arranged for all the, boxed them up, went downstairs. I went downstairs, so I'll make sure the taxi has come. And I said, taxi for Mariam, taxi for Mariam. And this man put his hand up. And I said, oh, great, okay, you know, I'll let me go and get the things that you're going to be carrying, and let me just go up and get them. I'll be back in a minute. So I went and got all the boxes. Mariam was still sort of doing something, and I took them down. We loaded them into the taxi, and I said, okay, Mariam won't be long. And I went back upstairs, and then we came down together, and the taxi was gone. I thought, oh my goodness, what's happened? And we phoned the taxi firm, and the taxi firm said, well, we don't have, you know, we have no record of this, you know, we don't know, the information you're giving us is not computing with everything. And I started to get really worried that, you know, the guy had been some kind of scammer and just hanging around at Broadcasting House. And the truth be told, the management had not really wanted me to send bits of kit outside the building. So I was sort of, you know, muddying the rules in rather a significant way. And I hadn't actually asked all the people that needed to give me permission, because I could just see the need. And these are all very, very responsible people, and they're not going to break things, and they're going to be fine. Anyway, I had to throw myself on the mercy of these people whose permission I hadn't asked. And they said, well, you better report it as a crime. So I had to go on the line, and you have to go through a crime report. And then we had written on all the boxes, you know, people's names, my phone number, Mariam's phone number, mobile numbers, just, you know, just trying to make, as well as the address that it was going to and everything else. And then suddenly we get a call, or Mariam gets a call from a woman called Miriam. And there had been a taxi waiting at Broadcasting House for a lady called Miriam, or going to pick up a lady called Miriam, who lived in somewhere in Hertfordshire. And this taxi had turned up at Miriam's house in Hertfordshire with, you know, laden with computer monitors, going, I've got your computer monitors, Miriam. And she's going like, what? And then she investigated the boxes and saw Miriam, and phoned the number. And then Mariam phoned me. I can't tell you how relieved I was, because I had been a bit naughty doing it. Anyway, so it was a bit farcical, but we were left with this kind of empty office, devoid of people and devoid of most of these bits of kit that you can see, keyboards and everything else. And of course, as I said, we were very well prepared, because we've been working flexibly ever since I became the head of visual and data journalism, because I really believe that's important for people. And And so we were in one way very well prepared, but what had gone immediately, like it turned off for the light bulb, was the kind of contact and camaraderie that you get in an office. And more importantly, the sort of creativity you get from just having that conversation in the kitchen as you're making a cup of coffee, or, you know, just thinking about something and then just turning to somebody and saying, oh, have you thought about this? That kind of creativity and creative conversation was just gone. And everything became much more structured, as we all know, on Zoom, which is a very, very good replacement in many ways and has lots of advantages. But this kind of point about missing the personal contact and the kind of creative thought and collective team spirit that engenders is clearly something that it's really hard to recreate without humans being in the same room together. And of course, all the staff were in one way really kind of excited, because this was, you know, a very big story. And, you know, we didn't know it was going to turn out to be such a tragic story, but it was clear it was going to be very, very big story. And, you know, none of us had ever experienced this before. And we're suddenly all working from home. It was sort of exciting, but it was also quite scary, especially once people's friends and relatives started to fall ill, or people in the office started to fall ill. Other things would happen, you know, younger ones who have rooms in shared houses. Well, you know, not all their flatmates were quite as diligent as I can hand on heart say my team were, and would sort of, you know, not be very sensitive to the fact that they were now working in a pretty pressurized situation at home. They'd be loud and, you know, everything else. That was very difficult. Some of the older ones were mums and dads and homeschooling and, you know, ferrying the kids around if they were allowed to go to school. These were all, you know, really difficult things, quite apart from trying to deal with this incredibly difficult story. You know, my policy was always be flexible, be understanding, give people time to kind of build a new structure around their lives, keep the audience at the heart of what we're thinking about, because this time, you know, just pure, factual, unadulterated information was what people were, and I think still are, incredibly hungry for. That's what's really, really important. And of course, because most of the people who were working in this office were digital people working off laptops, so that's a fairly easy transition technically to home. But television and radio, particularly television, cannot be done purely from home. It's just not possible. The complexity of a bulletin where you may be getting material into the building from 50 to 100 different sources around the UK, around the world, you know, you just can't do it from home. So a number of my team who are doing the graphics for the main television bulletins, for example, had to be in the building. So I would come into the building once a week to you know, look after them and show willing and everything. But it also meant that there were always going to be a number of the staff, probably around 15 to 20%, had to be in the building of the day. And therefore, the BBC, like many organisations, introduced a fairly bewildering set of COVID safety protocols at work. And the following few photographs is to show you why they were a bit bewildering. So many stickers appeared on the floor. And as you can see, these arrows seem to point in every direction. It's not entirely clear what you should do with this. It was what faced you if you were lucky enough to get in a lift, which of course only one person at a time can be in. When you came out, you were faced with all these arrows going in 3 different directions. It was a bit baffling. You'd find yourself on a one-way path and no way to get back. This was my favourite. It sort of says, queue here, give way and go both ways all at the same time. I have no idea what that was. I think they, in the end, I think they just had spare ones and they sort of whacked them down. And then this is a short video of me trying to find my way to the ladies' loo. if I play this, imagine the ladies' loo is on the right-hand side, and all the arrows, when I come into the room, all the arrows are pointing towards me. And there doesn't seem to be any way of, and then they're pointing back at me. So how do I get to the loo, which is over there by that orange wall? And I, in fact, found the Director General having exactly the same problem one day. So it all got a bit weird, to be honest, and but obviously very necessary. So, you know, things went on like this and we learned, we put our new structures in place and we learned lots of things. And we, of course, had to turn our attention very strongly to Zoom and making it work on Zoom. And we found that actually, when you're doing something which is data-driven, actually Zoom is quite good because you can share screens, share spreadsheets, talk about things, show people things much more easily, and even you can in person. And so that worked quite well. And we tried very hard to be sort of friendly on Zoom. And we used to have tea with our pets. And then here's a picture of us having Christmas on Zoom, where I rewrote the 12 Days of Christmas, and we sang. And if anyone has ever tried to sing on Zoom in a group, you'll know that it's the worst sound ever. And I don't know if you can see in the little chat on the actual screen, but somebody says, is everyone's pets going crazy? Because the noise was just horrendous, but it was good fun. And so, you know, we did our best for the staff and for each other. And I must say, I'm very proud of the team and of how we looked after each other with kindness, which became such an important thing as the months dragged on. But of course, what are we there for? We're there for doing the journalism. We're there for telling the story. We're there for, as I said, bringing trusted news and factual information to the audience. And so the big thing that my team did was create this page, which many of you may have used, called How Many Coronavirus Cases Are There in My Area? It's now a lot more than that. We obviously have built it up and changed it as the months have gone on. But what this page has, this is a UK page, it gives you, at the top of the page, it gives you the kind of latest big figures that come out every day. This looks very easy, I expect you think, but actually it's really hard because, especially in the first 3 or 4 months, the government were not very good at giving data. They promised to, but they would give it late. You'll know that health is devolved. So each of the governments in the 4 nations would give data in slightly different formats, in slightly different ways. And we had to find a way of putting them all together in such a way that we could update them every day and react to changes. But what this basically tells you, it tells you the number of cases, the number of deaths, the number of people in hospital, and of course, in recent months, we've added the number of vaccines. And beneath that top kind of headline information, you can put in your postcode and find out much more information about what's exactly going on in your area. And at the moment, we're up to nearly 400 million times that somebody has put in their postcode to that page, which is 4 times bigger than the previous record for a page on the BBC News website, which was in fact when the Brexit referendum happened. So that was just under 100 million, and we're now up to 400 million. And I think all that really is testament to, apart from the excellent work of the team, is how people are so hungry for just real information. And in a crisis, you know, heaven knows the BBC gets many things that it does wrong. But, you know, in a crisis, you know that we will be trying not to be sensational about anything. We will just be trying to bring you the facts. And I think people really appreciated that. And those pages are still updated every day. We've also got a global page where you can see much of the similar information country by country. And that's particularly interesting if you look at it over, there's a graphic which shows you over time, and you know how in the beginning it was all China with a bit of South Korea, and then suddenly Italy comes to the fore, and then Italy goes down, and the UK comes to the fore, and then America, and so you can see how this virus comes and goes in waves, not just in the UK but across the world. And this page too has nearly 200 million hits now. And I do think, you know, it's a nice way for me to have left my job, if you like, because I have indeed left that, and I'll be talking about that in a minute. But to know that, you know, we did a good job here. We did do a good job, and I'm very, very proud of that. And I think it really was important for the country. Yes, so I was talking about the fact I have left my job. Here I am with my lovely partner, Bridget, who's master here at Peterhouse. This is her getting her honorary degree from York University. That was in 2018, a few years ago now. And I had decided back in 2019 that schlepping up to London, which I'd already done for 3 years, getting up at 6 in the morning, working 4 days in the office and then a day at home, plus all the college events, the university events, and the other things that I did, like NVS, it was all getting a bit too much. And, you know, I'm sure you all can think, you know, when you're entering the sort of last third of your life, you start to think, now, am I doing what I really want to do? Can I afford not to do the things that I don't want to do? And how can I kind of do more of the things that I do like doing? And these things were all kind of going to my head, and suddenly we had lockdown. And then it's sort of like a kind of dress rehearsal, wasn't it? So first question was like, Bridget and I are going to spend more time together than we've ever spent together since we got together in 1993. Is that going to work? And of course it did, which was marvelous. I then sort of thought, you know, am I going to feel like if I wasn't working, what's my identity? What am I doing? Because I've worked all my life and not had my own kids and things like that, although we both have many nephews and nieces and sisters and brothers. But, you know, will I feel I've lost my identity? And then because Bridget would obviously still be being master of Peterhouse, would it feel like, you know, I was suddenly become the sort of housewife, which I've never been? And nothing wrong with being a housewife, but I just never played that role. And, you know, I wasn't really sure I did want to play that role. And, you know, on the other hand, I really felt like I wanted to change my life. I had done everything I ever wanted to do in my career. I'm so lucky like that. And I guess lockdown really confirmed that second set of emotions, which is, you know, it's okay, you will make this change and it will be all right and you'll enjoy it and you'll, you know, it's the right thing to do. So I'm not saying that I didn't become somewhat more domesticated in lockdown. I'm very proud of my my green tomato chutney. And we also made fig jam, and we made plum jam and grape jelly and all sorts of things. So we'd never made jam or chutney before. I can now do that. I'm very happy doing that. We also, this was a fantastic thing, started growing things from seed. So buying seeds and growing them. And we've got a greenhouse full of wonderful beef tomatoes. And these are the seeds that, I mean, we haven't got the tomatoes yet, but the flowers with the little tiny tomatoes are all there on the plants. And this is Bridget sowing the beef tomato seeds back. I guess we sowed them a bit early, actually. I think it was February or so. But they all seem to have worked. We've given loads away. And, you know, I did become more domesticated. But, you know, that was all fine. I made that decision. But there was another reason why I wanted to retire. And that was because of my mum. So my mum, who many of you met in 2019, when I took a month off work, and she came and stayed in the Master's Lodge for a month and came to many NVS events. and really, really enjoyed them and enjoyed meeting you all. She had a fall on Christmas Eve 2019, and she broke her shoulder at the top of her arm and her shoulder. And I sort of, really very much wanted to spend more time with her. But then the pandemic hit, and she was becoming frailer and frailer, to the point where we decided, and boy, was this a bad decision, that the level of care that she needed was best supplied by this really lovely care home, very, very nice care home, very near where my eldest sister lived in Yorkshire. And, all my sister and all her family could go and visit her every day. And, it would all, and she could come for, trips out and Sunday lunch and everything else. And we could go and visit her. And, it would, that was the best compromise that we could come to, because the level of medical care that she was needing was getting ever more. And so that was the plan. And then the pandemic hit. And then, of course, we couldn't go and see her. And it was all FaceTime and Zoom. And, I think it added to her frailty, the fact that we couldn't be in contact with her. I think you've probably all heard that story 1,000 times on the radio and read it 1,000 times, because that is undoubtedly true. So I expect it hastened things. But she did pass away in August after complications from the fall. And I think of her every day, of course I do, and I always will. And so that part of my retirement, where I would have spent a lot of time with her, didn't happen. But I think it's the whole experience of mum going has really brought us together much, much more as a family. And me spending more time with my family is my kind of mum's legacy to me, I think. And what I think I really need to do and must do, and am doing with all my many, many nieces and nephews who live around the country. The other things that I've been doing, well, getting more involved in the Cambridge Arts Theatre. That's been a bit of a roller coaster ride through the pandemic. Like all theatres, we had to close. And then we put everyone on furlough, and then we had to start laying people off. And then as things looked like they were getting better last autumn, we decided to put the Panto on. This is a great photo of Panto. And we did actually put a month of Panto on, which was sold out. No hesitancy about going into a room with lots of strangers. We were obviously socially distanced with masks, but still. Unvaccinated, there was no vaccinations yet. No problem at all doing that. But, now we're just been hit yesterday by, instead of a complete opening up on the 21st of June, it's going to go on longer than that. And that, again, means the theatre won't be making any money, might not even be breaking even. So that's been really kind of interesting thing to be part of and to try and help and support. Got more involved in NVS. You'll have noticed I'm around more. I can go and do things like go and visit June as well, which I'd never have had time for before. I've also applied, you all know probably, cats are very, very close to my heart. And I have applied to be a trustee at Cats Protection. And I'm through to the last 6. And I must say that will be, I have to do a presentation to the board and meet the board in person at the end of July. And presuming that goes ahead, I have done more interviews for this role than any job I ever got paid for. So I'll be a bit cross if I don't get it now, because I feel like this has been going on a long time and I put a lot of effort into it. But anyway, fingers crossed for that. I've also applied to be on the board of Alzheimer's Research UK, which is based in Granta Park, down in it's just beyond Linton. And that's also, a cause very close to my heart. My mum and my dad both left their brains to Alzheimer's research. My dad had Alzheimer's. And so we'll see if that goes somewhere. And I've also been asked to be on the board of a modern slavery charity, which I might do as well. But I have saved the most uplifting and positive and exciting thing till last. We have bought a house. that house in Yorkshire. It's called Lane Lodge, and it's on the high street of a lovely, it's a large village, I suppose I would call it, in Yorkshire, between Wetherby and Tadcaster, or if you're not a Yorkshire person, in slightly bigger geographical terms, between York and Leeds. And it's the village where my mum lived for the last 3 years of her life. It's the village where my big sister lives with her husband, and 2 of her kids live there. 2 others live within 10 miles of it. Bridget has 2 sisters who live in Yorkshire. She has many cousins, and we've both got friends in York. And of course, Bridget is also an honorary fellow of the university. So we have lots of links, and most importantly, lots of family there. And this house came on the market. It was a bit early because we're still here for 2 years in Cambridge, but these sorts of houses don't come on the market very often. I must say, for compared with Cambridge prices, it's very reasonable. And that turret in the middle is indeed a church, and that's not ours, that's across the road. So don't panic, I haven't bought a church. But it is a Georgian house, built in the 1790s, has a lovely big garden, which we will be spending a lot of time in. You can see there's a greenhouse there. And then also to the right of the greenhouse, there's what they call a loggia, which is a sort of covered but open area. So it's got a roof, but all the sides are open. And, somewhere where you can eat out, even when it gets a little bit more chilly. And that's going to be kind of our project really for the next 2 years. We want to make a bigger kitchen. We want to make a bigger bathroom. My brother-in-law is going to project manage the changes, and we'll employ lots of local people because you have to, get the right people to work on houses like this. And it's going to be kind of really what we worked all our lives for. It's lovely living here in the Master's Lodge, really lovely. And we're kind of given us a taste for living in a historic building. But it's not ours, it's feels a little bit more like ours because of lockdown and spending so much time here. And of course, the garden feels, very much more like ours because apart from the grass cutting, the gardeners were mainly on furlough for so long. And it was Bridget and I who were weeding and planting and buying extra plants to put in and, pruning and just keeping the whole show on the road. And we love it. And this also has a lovely big garden that we can kind of shape and prune back. It's a bit wild and make our own. So we hope we'll live there for 10 or possibly 15 years. We'll have family all around us. It's very well connected. It's only 1.5 miles off the A1, and we can go into York and Leeds and see plays or get the train down to London to see a big theatre thing or an exhibition. But that's where we're going to kind of spend our final years. So feel very good about that. Let me try. Jenny, could you stop me sharing?